Welcome back to CIA Declassified. We've crossed the line into the supernatural with MK often. Now we confront a boundary that is arguably more fundamental to our existence. Time. We're investigating Project Cassini, a multi-year project authorized in the mid-1970s and run primarily by the Directorate of Science and Technology, DS&T. Unlike the chaos of the occult project, Cassini was rooted in an almost academic pursuit of physics, psychology, and yes, espionage. Our primary evidence is the foundation document CIA-RDP88-00201R00050002-00002-3 titled, quote, Soviet Research into Subjective Temporal Anomalies and Response Protocol, end quote. The core mission of Cassini was simple yet revolutionary: to understand and weaponize the human mind's ability to subjectively alter its relationship with the objective linear flow of time. Can you speed up a soldier's reaction time? Can you slow down the enemy's decision-making process? Can you, in a moment of pure disassociation, witness the future? The file confirms that the CIA was directly responding to documented Soviet advances in a field they called, quote, psychic chronometry. End quote. The Soviets believed the human brain was not merely a passive recipient of linear time, but an active, adjustable temporal antenna. The time gap was the latest, most abstract frontier of the Cold War. To understand Cassini, we must first understand the threat that spawned it. Document 201R, CIA-RDP88. 00201R00050002-00002-3 is not a project log. It is an intelligence analysis detailing captured Soviet findings. The Soviets were pioneers in exploring the concept of, quote, perceived duration, end quote, the idea that 60 seconds is not always 60 seconds inside the mind. The Soviet research outlined a time perception index, TPI, arguing that certain sensory and chemical inputs could drastically compress or expand the experience of time. For example, in moments of extreme fear, time appears to slow down, a survival mechanism. The Soviets sought to induce this intentionally. The findings: the Soviet team used a combination of low-frequency, non-audible sound waves in sensory isolation chambers. By removing all external references to time, light, sound, gravity orientation, subjects reported extreme temporal dilation, a perceived hour when only minutes had passed. Our first quote comes from that same document, page 19, Analysis Note 4, Perceived Duration. Quote, the subject's reporting suggests a neurological mechanism capable of retaining and processing information at a rate far exceeding the consensus reality baseline. If a target perceives 1 second as 10, his decision matrix is exponentially expanded, end quote. This was the call to action for the CIA. If a soldier could gain 10 seconds of decision time in a firefight, or if a spy could experience a 4-hour interrogation session as mere minutes, the tactical advantage would be undeniable. Project Cassini was divided into 3 methodological branches, all aimed at achieving chronological displacement, the mental separation from the present moment. A. Auditory entertainment. Cassini took the Soviet infrasound findings and refined them. Researchers used sophisticated binaural beat technology, slightly different frequencies played to each ear, designed to induce specific brainwave states such as theta, associated with deep meditation and dreaming. The hypothesis was that these states were the closest a person could get to detaching their consciousness from the ticking clock. B. Sensory deprivation. The tank. Subjects were placed in highly engineered isolation tanks, dark, silent, and filled with salt water at body temperature to eliminate tactile sensation. The goal was to eliminate all external temporal cues, leaving the mind only with its internal metronome. And C. Chemicals. While not as central as MK-Ultra, Cassini did utilize pharmaceuticals. The file references compounds, primarily dissociatives, intended to delinearize perception. These drugs were used not to confuse, but to stabilize the subject in the temporally displaced state long enough for the espionage task. A key theoretical concept emerged from Cassini, temporal drag. The idea suggests that when the mind attempts to perceive the future or the past, it pulls the viewer slightly out of sync with the present. The CIA theorized that by artificially inducing displacement, using the methods that I just went over, they could lessen the drag and stabilize the temporal viewing window. The most ambitious goal of Cassini was to push remote viewing, which was being researched under Project Stargate at the time, and is also coincidentally the topic of the first episode of this podcast, into the realm of prophecy and retrocognition. Retrocognition trials. Subjects were asked to describe the contents of a locked safe room before the agency changed the contents. The success rate was low, but one notable instance, detailed in a heavily redacted appendix, involved a viewer accurately describing the text on a document that was destroyed 3 weeks prior to the session. The final report labels this success, quote, statistically improbable under zero displacement, end quote. Precognition trials. Viewers were asked to describe the outcome of coin tosses or stock market fluctuations 1 week out. Success in this area was almost non-existent. The file speculates that the future is inherently too fluid to be observed, describing it as a temporal foam that resists definitive viewing. A quote from page 61, Field Report G14, Limitations of Precognition. The attempt to anchor the mind to future moments appears to result in severe cognitive friction or temporal resistance. Overwhelming the subject's ability to stabilize the future is experienced not as a picture, but as a chaotic high-energy wave. The danger of Project Cassini was not physical, it was purely existential. What happens when the mind separates from its fixed point in the timeline? The documented term is temporal disassociation, a state where the subject loses the ability to distinguish between memory, immediate present, and expectation. The linear sequence of cause and effect breaks down. The symptoms. Subjects reported experiencing multiple parallel realities, hearing conversations that had not yet occurred, or seeing themselves in different periods of their life simultaneously. They became, for all intents and purposes, temporally lost. This frequently resulted in severe psychological breakdown. Final determination. Like MK often, the final determination on Cassini was complex. 1. Paranormal efficacy. The project failed to scientifically prove the existence of time travel or verifiable pre- or retrocognition. The goal of using the mind to see the past or future was deemed a failure. 2. Psychological efficacy. However, the project was deemed a stunning success in applied neuropsychology. The ability to predictably manipulate the perceived duration of time proved invaluable. The protocols developed in Cassini using specific binaural beats and sensory chambers were immediately transferred to training programs for Special Forces operatives to increase perceived reaction time and to counter hostile interrogation techniques by inducing temporal dilation in prisoners. The CIA learned that while they could not change time, they could dramatically change how a person experienced it, making the subjective passage of time a potent and terrifying psychological weapon. The story of Cassini proves that the ultimate frontier for intelligence agencies is the human mind's perception of reality itself. They don't just want secrets, they want control over how and when those secrets are experienced. Please like this episode and share it with someone who questions the nature of reality. Your support is crucial for continuing this deep dive into the classified history of the Cold War. Now, a final programming note. We move from the abstract physics of time to the tangible geometry of control. Our next episode, we analyze the files linked to Project Cinders. This is the agency's investigation into architectural psychology and subliminal perception in public spaces. We will dissect documents concerning the strategic use of specific color palettes, sonic installations, and subtle anxiety-inducing geometric shapes in public infrastructure. The question is, did the CIA use architectural design to subtly influence crowd behavior, stifle political dissent, or create a continuous low-level state of compliance among citizens? We will expose the dark rationale behind controlling not just what you think, but where you think it. Tune in for our next episode on Project Cinders, the geometry of control. Until then, remember, maintain your vigilance, question the shadows, and keep your critical thinking sharp. See you in the archives.